we appreciate the opportunity to come to Arizona and get out of Pennsylvania this time of year. We also appreciate the opportunity for our student athletes to play one more time and at a place like Penn State, for our community to have the opportunity to gather and be together at this time of year and coalesce around Penn State football as an opportunity to celebrate as a community is always a great thing for us.
Sandy, to get to back-to-back New Year's Six games, top 10 rankings, just all the exposure the program is getting, how valuable is that, tangibly and intangibly?
You know, as an athletic director, what you always want is for the institution to recognize the value, the importance, the benefits that accrue to the university and its adjacent community from successful intercollegiate athletics, and you're seeing that at Penn State. You always have, and we're back to a point where the kind of vibe that's coming off of Penn State football is a real enhancement to the university. And New Year's Day 6 bowls, the opportunity to win 11 games 2 years in a row, I think speaks volumes about James Franklin's leadership of our football program, where we're headed, the efforts of our student athletes, and certainly the efforts of literally hundreds, and ultimately when you start talking about the support from our alumni, you're talking about literally thousands who've made this possible.
Sandy, in any way,
just talk about how much there's still a climb to go here. That you're in good position, but there's a climb. How close is the program to where you want it to be?
Well, first of all, if you ever start thinking you're there, you're automatically behind. I think the one thing that we don't talk very much about anymore, and that is our depth. And I think that we're getting close to being at a point where the sanctions we've recovered from the scholarship sanctions. So I think that we might be getting close to. But you all know this is a really dynamic environment, particularly college football. College athletics is a very dynamic environment, but college football in particular. And I don't know that you ever get there. I think the health and welfare of our student athletes and the program itself is the utmost priority and the utmost importance. That depth issue has always been huge, so to kind of get to stasis there, I think is really important. But we've got to constantly be evaluating where we are in the competitive landscape.
Sandy, did this level of on-field success come more quickly than maybe you anticipated? I know we asked you about that last year, but when you go to New Year's Six 2 years in a row, that's an indicator of stability as well.
Absolutely, which is obviously a very positive thing. I think it's hard to say too soon. Obviously, a year ago, September of 2016, I believed this was where we were headed. Did I think it was going to come later in that year and then be followed up by another year like that? I probably, if I were honest with you, wouldn't say that I would think that it would come at that point in time. But this is where we've been headed all along.
Sandy, what's it mean to you that both athletic departments at these two schools are led by females?
I think it means that from a gender standpoint, we're making strides. But both Jen Cohen and I, who are both very good friends, want this to be about our football programs and about our football student athletes, our institutions, our coaches, and our staffs that have done all of the work. Jen and I just happen to be the leaders of these programs.
Sandy, we asked you last year out in California about the selection process with the playoff. What happened this year, is there anything that has changed your perspective on non-conference scheduling moving forward?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest challenge. I've been asked a lot in the last month about, well, do I think we got it? Do they think that the playoff committee got it right? Is the playoff structured correctly? From an institutional standpoint, I still think the biggest challenge is what signals does the committee send? What guidance is the college football playoff giving us from a non-conference scheduling standpoint? Because obviously what we want to do is put ourselves in the best position to be selected every year, to be in the conversation, to be selected. And I will say this: I think there have been mixed signals, so that does make it difficult in giving us direction. So I think, given we're now in year 4, the Pac-12's been left out twice, the Big 12 has been left out twice, and I shouldn't say left out, not represented. Obviously, somebody's going to in a four-team playoff, somebody's going to be left out. But and now the Big Ten this year, there are going to be some conversations, and there should be. There always should be refinement in looking at it. But from a Penn State centered perspective, one of the main things I'm looking for is guidance around what we need to do from a non-conference schedule to put ourselves in the best position to be in the conversation, to be selected for the CFP.
And what were those mixed signals?
I just think in the last couple of years, I think the first 2 years they were fairly consistent. Let's also not forget, this committee is turning over. I don't think the number is even and set the same every year. I think there are 6 members going off of this committee at the end of this year. So that'll be some pretty significant turnover. They have guidelines, but obviously those are different people in the room. The committee makeup is different. I think the first couple of years, the signal was probably around strength of schedule. I think these last 2, that's been a little more iffy.
The amount of money schools have to hire assistant coaches is one of the hotter talking points, it seems, now more than ever. Do you guys feel like you're on the right side of that conversation, and do you feel like it helps you hire 3? I mean, you've lost 3 coaches, and obviously promoted from within.
Well, we lost
but
2.
They're 2, sorry,
Yeah.
right. But, I mean, you filled those spots pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we constantly have to be assessing. I think one of the more important things that you do is you put together a staff in any sport. Obviously, we're talking about football here, and those are the leaders that are going to surround the young men that you're talking about in your football program. So we're always going to make sure that we are competitive from a salary standpoint, and to attract the right people to come and lead our young men, and we absolutely are, based on what we know about resources for 10th coach and what we know about what pools are looking at at this point.
Sandy, going off of scheduling, has been any progress with Pitt? Have you guys talked about that, you and Heather Lake, about potentially extending this thing, or where does that stand?
We talked when they were here when they were in State College in September, but there's been no progress at this point in time.
You mentioned the success you've had the past 2 years in terms of football. Is that translated on the fundraising trail in a way that gets you closer to a place where you feel like you can announce more public goals and strategies for some of these renovations that you want to do?
Well, the renovations around football and around Lash have been ongoing, as has our fundraising, and I think we're making good progress there. Probably not as quickly as the most aggressive of us would like, but that will come in time. Where we are with the rest of the master plan, we're in a feasibility study phase where we're actually assessing what our opportunities might be from a fundraising standpoint. And I think once we have that information, we'll have the opportunity to start moving forward more judiciously.
Sandy, what are the most recent renovations in Lash that you're talking about, just so we know, and are there things that you can tell us about that are on the table in the near future that you're going to take care of at Lash or with the football facilities in general?
Well, the most recent would be some of the things we finished around hydrotherapy, obviously the locker room that I think now is probably 2 summers ago. But there's an entire master plan for Lash that includes the position meeting rooms, players' lounge, some of those kinds of things that are on the docket to get done.
How about with Beaver Stadium? When is a reasonable time frame to expect maybe some major changes or renovations to the stadium?
Yeah, so we continue to do minor things to Beaver Stadium as called for, but as you know, Beaver Stadium was not in the first 5-year segment that we announced, so that's not on the near horizon.
With attendance up this year, would that make you reassess the capacity change that you had announced last year?
Not really, because it's, the plans around Beaver Stadium are around fan experience, and so we think those are needed regardless of what the economics of are around capacity.
Along the lines of Beaver Stadium, you guys have any plans for another concert this year or anything else in the works to use that stadium more than a handful of
We are looking at several things as potential for Beaver Stadium. Perhaps as soon as this summer, perhaps in the next summer. It's a matter of scheduling. It's a matter of what events we can book.
Are there any plans to renovate it, to winterize it, to be able to host events in cold weather?
So we've talked about the Midwinter Classic, and absolutely, in order for us to host that, which we've talked to the NHL, they would love us to do it, we would love to do it, but that winterization would need to take place, and that probably is around the major renovation of the stadium itself.
Sandy, getting back to the playoff really quickly, you think an 8-team system would solve some of those mixed signals that you mentioned?
I don't know whether it would solve some of the signals around strength of schedule. I think some of the latitude around the committee and the turnover has more to do with the how do we schedule to best position ourselves from a playoff standpoint. Whether you want to talk about 16, whether you want to talk about 18, none of that solves all of the issues. Because the only thing it would solve is you could make the 5 power conferences, autonomy conferences, automatics. That you could solve, but then you create other opportunities for debate around who's number 6, or in an 18 playoff who are 7 and 8. It's just like NCAA basketball. And that's part of the fun of it. Is there's always conversation, there's always consternation about getting left out. It's just you get left out further along the curve.
Speaking of basketball, is there extra pressure on Patrick Chambers to achieve a certain goal this year with regards to the postseason? Is that something that in year 7, in your mind, is something that needs to be accomplished?
First of all, and I've said it before, there's nobody putting more pressure on Patrick than Patrick himself as a competitor, and that's true of all of us. I don't think anything has changed from the conversations that I had with Patrick over the summer, and that I've had with you all about where we need to see progress is in the Big Ten, is in our Big Ten schedule, and that's obviously we played the 2 early games. Great win at Iowa, a little bit disappointing loss at home against Wisconsin, but that entire Big Ten schedule is in front of it, and I think we've got a great chance to make noise in the Big Ten and do something from a postseason standpoint. We're talented.
A little bit. What was the thought process that went into the bid in Allentown to host the NCAA for hockey this postseason and next?
It's to have a facility that qualified to host the regional, to be able to do that.
There, but why did you want to do it?
We've got a great hockey program, great men's ice hockey program that, as we saw last year, is on the up and coming. Wanted for the state of Pennsylvania and for some of our followers throughout the state to have the opportunity to support Penn State hockey in a regional, should we be fortunate enough to advance.
Sandy, have you been having conversations with Virginia about finishing that lingering home and home where you still can have them up for a game?
We're in conversations with them.
Are they any closer than you were a year ago?
I think we are closer to solving it, yeah, because we've had some pretty direct conversations, but I couldn't tell you where that's going to end up at this point.
Sandy, getting back to basketball, and Ben mentioned Allentown. There's obviously an arena in Allentown. We have one in Reading, there's one in Hershey. Has there been any thought to scheduling a men's basketball home game at one of these arenas once a year to build up the fan base, throughout the state?
Yeah, there has, and I think you all know Patrick pretty well. Patrick's willing to go anywhere and play anyone, loves the Penn State fan base, and wants our fans throughout the state to support this team and to really feel connected with this team. So I certainly think those things are possibilities.
Sandy, when
Non-conference
you-
scheduling gets a lot of attention in football. But as you sit here in men's basketball, you don't have any quality victories in the non-conference. You mentioned playing well in the Big Ten, but you're coming off a loss to Rider. If you don't get in the tournament, the non-conference would probably be a big part of that. So do you need to play better people in the non-conference in basketball?
It depends on where you are in your cycle of your program. You also realize that typically across the country, in all sports other than football, your coaches are the ones that are putting together the schedules, and they're doing it with an eye towards the ebb and flow of their team. And you've got to trust that they're doing what's right for the program in terms of its development.
Going back to the other arenas around the state, what were the strides made this year to try and get back to the Palestra?
I think we did not talk about the Palestra this year because we had done it a year ago. Obviously, what a great event, what a great environment for us. So I think that certainly might be something in our future, but I don't think there were efforts towards that this year.
Sandy, when you signed James to the extension, did you expect every month or so there was still going to be Texas A&M, or he's the NFL wants him, or that sort of thing? Is that just part of it? And how do you react when you see those sort of things popping up now and then?
Well, I would certainly hope that others would recognize what we know in terms of Coach Franklin's talents, and with that is going to come attention from both the NFL and other colleges, and then it's obviously then beholden upon me and upon Penn State to make sure that we're in constant conversation with Coach Franklin, and that he understands how we feel about him, how much we want him at Penn State, and that this is a place he can stay for a very, very long time.
Sandy, what impact might that new tax legislation have on college football teams, specifically at Penn State, with season ticket holders not being able to now deduct donations as part of their tax filings?
Yeah, I mean, it could have an impact. I certainly believe that Penn Staters are very passionate about Penn State football and about being in Beaver Stadium on Saturday afternoons. They're very generous, and so I believe that although there certainly are going to be some individual situations where that's going to impact. The other issue is, what's the percentage of our season ticket holders who itemize versus take the standard deduction? If it's standard deduction, there will be zero implication of the new tax law to them. So, although I'm certainly not naive to think that there would be no impact on us, I believe that our season ticket holders are going to want to be in Beaver Stadium on Saturday afternoons. And understand the case for support for what they're supporting through their generosity.
Sandy, staying in Arizona, ASU's made some news about hiring Herb Edwards and their decision to have a new leadership model running the program. What are your thoughts and opinions about that?
Well, I have read a little bit about what Ray Anderson is doing, and I don't pretend to fully understand it, but these things are particular to individual institutions and situations and what fits you. I worked with Ray when I was in the Pac-12, and he's a really bright guy with lots of ideas, and there's no doubt the folks will be watching to see actually what it is and how it works out, what kind of impact it does have. But we're working off a model at Penn State that's worked for a really long time, worked well, and has integrated our athletic program, our football program into the academy and into the institution. It's worked quite well for us for a long time.